Just read a couple of articles. There's some interesting news stuff to go over. Not to mention the article I was told about yesterday. Christopher Hitchens talking about tea. Hey, Kim Gal. So to prepare myself for imminent tea discussions, I do of course have some tea, but I also made sure to have the appropriate tea for what we're talking about in to brace myself for what is, I'm sure, imminent Britishness. We have the most American tea I have, the Boston Harbor tea that I picked up on the East Coast a few weeks ago, if you remember. So we'll be fighting for our American culture, all right, in small ways. Pass out there a couple of news stories, a couple of articles that seem kind of neat that we can go over, and that's what we'll do today. Kind of a chill day. I had a bit of a I had a bit of a realization. I was like, oh no, like we're ending an arc like right before the end of the week. If I start another one, I was like, oh, maybe I'll watch this thing or that thing, but it's gonna take more than one day. And I was like, I can't get into this cycle of arcs starting on the last day, my last streaming day of the week. So we're gonna pump the brakes, have a chill one, and then have some more contentious stuff, have some more exciting things starting next week. So as I say, got my tea, got myself ready to go, and no spoilers, everyone. All right, I'm holding you to it. All right, this is the honor system. All right, I'm looking at you, chat. No spoilers for what's coming up. I know you can see my tabs, but don't look at them. All right, that's the power you have to not spoil yourself. All right, let's brace ourselves for some Britishness. Knowing Christopher Hitchens, I expect this will be a very interesting, well thought out article that has a lot of really interesting ideas and well thought out positions, marred by one or two unconscionably, that's the word I want. I can speak. Unconscionably horrifically bad takes. That's the Hitchens way, is being real smart, having a lot of really good positions, actually a huge number of them, and then out of nowhere, some really garbage position. I'm thinking, of course, of like him defending the Iraq War. I think until he died, or doubling down on an article he had written saying that women aren't funny, or arguing that waterboarding wasn't torture. At least for that last one, he did ultimately try it and found out, oh no, yeah, that's torture, which is admirable. But I don't know that I can ever forgive him for creating this slew of like Steven Crowder esque types who pretend to do that, uh, even as they are actually incapable of changing their minds. But that preamble out of the way, it's not a very long article. We might as well just see what he has to say. All right. How to make a decent cup of tea. Ignore Yoko Ono and John Lennon and heed George Orwell's tea making advice. Ooh, all right, all right. Starting off with firing some shots. Obviously, it's not on a political axis. It's not like Ben Shapiro's issue with John Lennon, which, if you are unfamiliar with, please, I I beg of you, go look into it. It's the funniest thing I've ever seen. Ben Shapiro was a weird thing about John Lennon, in particular the song Imagine. But uh, this article came out 12 years ago. I'm unfamiliar with that. Yeah, the short version is that Imagine is an amazing song and a cultural touchstone, but it's also extremely left wing in its messaging. It's asking the listener to imagine a world without religion and a world without nations and a world without private property, and that's like antithetical to everything Ben Shapiro wants, and so he has to like rant against it, but he does it in such weird ways. Like he claims it's really pretentious. It's great. There Big Joel on YouTube has a great video about it. I think Sean does also. I forget, but it's so funny. How like his retorts to this of just like, oh, there's the commie shit, and he's just like, he just looks so weak even in his own video. He even goes so far as to claim it's pretentious. This like three chord song that's like most chords. Also, Ben plays the violin and has done so in very pretentious ways, but whatever. Enough getting distracted. All right, this came out 12 years ago, 2011, just at the start of the new year. Now that the holidays, at their new style Ramadan length, with the addition of Hanukkah plus the spur and lash of commerce, are safely over, I can bear to comfort the moment at the very beginning when my heart took its first dip. Just as a note about the holidays, it's kind of funny of like, um, you're saying like, oh, with the addition of Hanukkah, Hanukkah came first, motherfucker. Like, but it's just not that important to Judaism. So it became more important, as he's mentioning here, for the commerce. It's like, well, there's this demographic of people who aren't really wrapped up in the Christmas stuff. Like, let's overemphasize this other holiday, which it's really not that big a deal in Judaism. Um, it's not. It's neither here nor there. It was December 8th, and Yoko Ono had written a tribute to mark the 30th anniversary of the murder of her husband. Should we read it? Nah, I think we'll just take his word for what's going on here. In her New York Times op-ed, we're gonna open it just in case we want to read it. All right. She recalled how the two of them would sometimes make tea together. He used to correct her method of doing so, saying, "Yoko, Yoko, you're supposed to first put the tea bags in and then the hot water." That's what I've always done, but I didn't know that was like it was wrong to do. I don't think it's necessarily wrong to do otherwise. That said, if you're really making proper tea, shouldn't you be using tea leaves and not tea bags? That's what I started doing. I'm not saying that's like you're wrong if you do use tea bags. I still do from time to time when I'm feeling lazier, but I will say loose leaf tea. I have been impressed at the improved quality, if not the uh, worsened convenience. This she represented as his Englishness speaking. In two senses, though, I am sure he would actually have varied the word order and said, "Put the tea bags in first." Uh, oh, okay. He just a grammatical joke. That's funny. Yeah, that was something I was wondering as he was mentioning this. Is I would assume that different cultures have different things, like different ways that they make their tea. I mean, the basics are going to be the same, but culturally there might be a little bit of like, okay, well the teapots are a little different, or like this is you put the tea in first, or then the water, or whatever else. I think loose leaf tea is richer. I agree. I definitely agree with that. Not to mention that like a lot of tea bag tea is it's like mass produced and processed, so like you don't have as much of like they're trying to just produce lots of it, whereas loose leaf is being a little bit more a little bit less popular. That people are looking into it or looking for quality. So just that particular dynamic, because I've had very good tea from tea bags. Celestial Seasonings is a company I like a lot. Not everything works with me, but I do think they're trying over there. Um, but you also have the like, here's the 400 package box of green tea where it's like all it tastes like garbage and whatever else. So it's like a little bit more of a range. Whereas with loose leaf tea, oftentimes people trying, and where I usually get it from, it's a local person who makes it. So he's particularly interested himself, like it's his craft. Which you can get with loose leaf that you don't get so much with tea bags. That said, the inconvenience of loose leaf tea has had me going like, I wonder if I could like get a little satchel, I can put the loose leaf tea in that, and then I'm like, I'm just reinventing tea bags. I'm literally just reinventing tea bags. Um, you know what? I'm interested in the tea discussion. We're pausing here. We're gonna read Yoko Ono's article. Let's see how long it is. Okay, sure, whatever. No, oh well. Unless unless the New York Times wants to be a butt about it. Let me see. Let's see if we can find it elsewhere. Uh, hmm. Well, it doesn't seem like it. Oh, all right. We're not reading Yoko Ono's article. My bad. I'm sorry. It would have been interesting, but I'm not paying. I'm not going through their paywall. This was fine, indeed excellent, and I was nodding appreciatively, but then the blow fell. One evening he told her that an aunt had corrected him. Aunt? My whole life I said aunt, and then now I'm surrounded by everyone who says aunt that I accidentally said it the other way. I don't know, what it doesn't really matter. The water should indeed precede the bags. So all this time we were doing it wrong. Is this really like wrong? I've done this both ways. I do find that putting the tea in first hastens the process because as you're pouring it, you can try to like pour it onto the tea bag, and so it's kind of filtering through at the outset. It just takes a little longer to steep if you put the tea bag in, or the loose leaf, whatever. If you put the tea in after, but it doesn't seem worse to me from in my experience. In fact, I've had instances where I've like done a little bit of both. Like I'm making a pot of tea, and then I'm realizing as it's starting to steep that I haven't put in enough tea, so I'm like I add a little bit more after. It's fine. It works out. It just takes a little longer to steep. It's not a big deal. But I guess I'm not like a tea expert, and Christopher Hitchens, as mentioned before, is British, so maybe he. On the other hand, Yoko Ono is Japanese. I don't know. Both have a pretty significant cultural background of tea making. I don't know. Yeah, hard to believe it makes a significant difference. There are some teas where like I can imagine it being the case. So like one of the things I learned getting into like loose leaf tea and stuff is that certain teas should be brewed at certain temperatures. For example, green tea should be like I think 185 degrees, or put like just before boiling as opposed to just after. And it does make a difference. If you put boiling water with your green tea, it'll get really bitter. Same if you steep it for too long. So like I can understand like because of the how delicate that is, one before the other could make a difference, but not for all teas. Like with black teas, it doesn't seem to matter whatsoever. Yeah, it's very weird. It's also something people have noted, by the way, about Iroh from Avatar: The Last Airbender, is that he prefers jasmine tea, which is a tea that requires patience and attention, which suits his nature so well. As like, he could boil the water instantly as a firebender or whatever, but that would ruin the jasmine tea. Instead, you have to be patient with it. You have to pay attention. You have to be careful and gentle and delicate with this, which is so much more like his Zen, his kind of enlightened perspective. It jives well with that. There's a nice little touch of the creators of it, that he likes green teas, which require that extra attention. That said, in the modern day, it's a lot easier to do this with a normal kettle. You can just wait for like the first few wisps of steam, and that's usually about right. Don't let it boil, but you start to see a little steam coming out of the kettle. All right, it's probably good. But we also have electric kettles now, where you can just set the temperature that you want the water to be, and you just don't have to think about it. It's so much easier. Uh, Modern convenience, technology good. All right. So all this time we were doing it wrong, she inquired. Yeah, replied our hero. John Lennon, our hero, for saving the tea. I appreciate this framing of. I mean, obviously Hitchens knows what he's doing here, of like intentionally taking too seriously. I like the embellished language of the. I don't know. It's a very subtle joke, and I like it. Becoming in that moment a turncoat to more than a century of sturdy Liverpool tradition. This is something. This is a sentiment. I'm sorry. I think I'm just too American to understand. This is some sort of British joke. I'm too continental to understand. Or I guess I'm too American in this case. Continental for Europeans would mean like continental Europe, as I understand it. I simply hate to think of the harm that might result from this. I like the like he's like shuddering. I was like, oh no, it is already virtually impossible in the United States, unless you undertake the job yourself, to get a cup or pot of tea that tastes remotely as it ought to. Maybe that was the case. I don't know. It depends on where you're going. Like, I've been to tea shops now. Obviously, this article came out 12 years ago. I've been to tea shops where the tea is very good, and I mean, I don't know how they make it. They just bring you the pot of tea. But so one of the ones I've been to, one in New York called the Russian Tea Room, has been around for a long time. And I can't imagine he wouldn't have heard of it. Maybe he hadn't gone or something. But their tea was quite good. I have to imagine. Maybe the British have different standards. Maybe my unsophisticated American palate isn't realizing the problems with this tea, or whatever. It's quite common to be served a cup or a pot of water well off the boil, with the tea bags lying on an adjacent cold plate. Well, this is like if you go to like Starbucks, yeah, I guess, because it's easier for them to just be like, here's the box of tea bags, pick the one out, and we'll hand you the cup of boiling water. Though, of course, as I mentioned, for different teas, boiling is already wrong. And often these places it feels like it's over boiling. It's not just at boiling, but it's like a little over. Excuse me. Uh, but it depends on where you're going. Also, you can I don't. Also, you're having tea bags, right? Like if you want good tea, get some loose leaf. You should know better than this at least. If they're this upset about it, I guess I guess this advice is useless at this point. But still, should have known better. I guess this is what I mean about this one inexcusably and randomly horrible take. Yeah, tea bags aren't the problem. It's that you're putting the tea in first, or the water in first. Then comes the ridiculous business of pouring the tepid water, dunking the bag until some change in color occurs, and eventually finding some way of disposing the resulting and dispiriting tampon circuit. Another issue with tea bags, though I will say it is a little worse for loose leaf tea because I don't know if I have like the appropriate accoutrement for doing it. I just have like these little strainer balls that just metal with like little holes in it. You put the tea, you close it, and dunk it in. It ends up being more or less like a tea bag. It's just in metal and it's with loose leaf instead of whatever came in the package. Uh, and while yes, the like damp the damp used tea bag is a little annoying and gross to deal with. With loose leaf, it's kind of worse because you have to rinse out this thing. I'm sure there are other means of doing this, and like with when I make when it's in a pot, I have like a strainer that comes with the pot. But still, it's a little more annoying to deal with than the teabag thing. Teabags are ultimately more convenient, but I guess what's the issue with disposing of the teabag? That happens in either case, doesn't it? I appreciate, by the way, in case anyone's confused as to why I'm going on about it, I'm enjoying a bit over analyzing this very silly article on this very silly topic. All right, just be here for the spirit of things, right? Let's think too seriously about this very silly thing. All right. The drink itself is then best thrown away. Whoa! Though if swallowed, it will have about the same effect on morale as reading the memoirs of President James Earl Carter. Uh, I mean, I haven't read this, so I'll take his word on having a negative effect on morale. But maybe it's just the quality of the tea bag you're getting, and I don't think the difference is when you put the water in and when you put the tea in. Um, it's really not that big a deal. Just like yes, it takes a little more time to steep. That's annoying, but all right. Now imagine that tea, like coffee, came without a bag, as it used to and still does if you buy a proper tin of it. Yeah, you can still buy tins of loose leaf tea, though. Again, that's where we see like the quality difference of getting it in a tin is usually like mass produced process. They're not trying to. It's not necessarily aimed at quality, whereas local sources, if you have access to those, tend to be better just because they're like it's their own craft. They're trying to make it. In fact, one of the things I kind of want to do is buy a chamomile plant and see if I can make my own chamomile tea. That'd be kind of neat, right? I've been, maybe I should just do that like this week or something. I've been wrestling with it, because I'm sure I would forget, but I can probably handle that. It'd be neat, right? Make my own chamomile tea. All right. Would you consider, in either case, pouring the hot water, letting it sit for a bit, then throwing the grounds or leaves on top? That would be a little weird, but like, just stir it. Just stir it. Just stir it. It does seem weird to me to put the bag in second, but I guess in the spirit of being being overly critical about something silly, I guess I'm in agreement with Hitchens here. It's not that big a deal, but that's what we're doing here. We're being too serious and too upset about something that's not a big deal. That would be good. I don't think chamomile is hard to grow. I don't think so either, and I love chamomile. Um, I also was wondering like if I do it myself, if I can avoid the little particles that are an issue. I do really like chamomile tea, and the kind I've been getting from that local place I was mentioning is so good. It's just absolutely the best chamomile I've ever had. It's fantastic, phenomenal. One issue I do have with loose leaf chamomile though is it has all these tiny little particles that like you get a little bit of dregs in like any loose leaf tea, any cup of loose leaf tea or pot or whatever. But with this, it's a lot, and it's like it's not a problem. It's not like bad if you ingest it or whatever. It's just one of those like there's that little bit of like oh icky. I don't want to like drink it. You know, it's like and there's so much of it. So I wonder if like if I do it myself, if there's any way to like avoid that. Probably not though, because it is literally just the flour, and if the flour has all those little particles, what are you gonna do about it? I thought not. Try it once and you will never repeat the experience, even if you have a good strainer to hand. Yeah, that's probably true, just for like convenience sake, right? You could if you put the grounds in after, you can literally just stir it and it'll be fine. But the process of pouring it over or through the tea or the coffee does like start to seep immediately. Like it does make it easier and more convenient. And, like there's not really a reason to put the tea in after. I guess that's the big thing of like I don't understand why you would put the tea in after, even though the reasons to put it in before might be minor. In the case of coffee, it might just work if you are quick enough, though where would be the point? Yeah, exactly, like why? But ground beans are heavier and denser, and in any case, many good coffees require water that is just fractionally off boil. Whereas tea is an herb, isn't it an herb? Is a herb or an herb if you insist? Yes, I do insist, sir. I do insist. That has been thoroughly dried. In order for it to release its innate qualities, it requires to be infused. This is what the steeping process is about. That's what you're doing. You're infusing it. You're getting it to like mix and whatever. Um, it's a little isn't it the same thing with coffee? As my understanding is it's the same process. It's just a instead of a flower or an herb, Mr. Hitchens. Uh, it's just a bean. But I've seen someone who is very into high quality coffee. Oh my, he made me coffee like twice, and it was exceptional. It was so good. And he also had like an infuser. You would see these people have used these for tea as well. They call it tea infuser, tea or coffee infuser. I don't have it because it's a little more awkward. I could get one, I guess. And some mugs you can get actually have like an kind of an infuser built in or like as an attachment. It's not terribly different as I understand it. But again, I'm not like an expert. I'm just I have a hobby, like a slight interest that I picked up. And an infusion, by definition, needs the water to be boiling when it hits the tea. No, it doesn't. Maybe by definition, but green tea, it never comes to boil. It never comes close to boil. Same with white tea. I think white tea is 175 as opposed to 212. No, it doesn't have to be boiling. Um, Grasp only this, and you hold the root of the matter. Maybe he's thinking exclusively like black teas, which okay, sure, but that's not really much different than it would. I guess once if you have the hot water in your cup and then you put the tea, the water will cool a bit before the tea can really get infused. Just after World War II. Oh, great. The import being low. We're not talking about something silly, all right? We're talking about World War II. To juxtapose these isn't ridiculous at all, which is, of course, the point. That's not a criticism, to be clear. An herb, a herb, H pronounced. A herb? Oh, no. No, 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 no. It depends on whether you pronounce the H in herb. No, 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 no. Don't do that. No. All right, that's wrong. Incorrect. I know we talk a lot about how words change and definitions evolve and like how it has to be about utility and what suits us, but you're objectively wrong. The laws of the universe have made it clear that herb does not have a pronounced H. All right, that's how it works. English is weird, but we've recently discovered in lab environments that the H should not be pronounced. In England, they pronounce the H. Well, they're wrong. I don't know. I don't know how the English managed to be this wrong about their own language, but they are constantly. That color with a U. The nerve of these people. You made the language. You'd think you'd be better at it, and it's a wacky language. It doesn't make any sense. You'd think you'd at least keep to the wackiness that you invent. What with their governors and their innits. Ooh, that was not a great cup of tea. Just after World War II, during a period of acute food rationing in England, George Orwell wrote an article on the making of a decent cup of tea. Oh, we have additional reading. Whoa, whoa, is it gone? Y'all saw that, right? I tried to open it, it just vanished. Hold on, hold that thought. All right, we have follow-up readings. How long is this? Not long. We're reading it. All right. When we're done, we're reading it. Look at this. All this tea content. Maybe today we'll do tea content. All right. We can save a lot of these other articles. We'll do tea content, and then we'll finish it up with some of the with one of the other stories that's a little more pressing. I'm gonna modify my stream name because we are no longer just doing news articles. All right. All right. And unlike when other people talking about talking about some hot internet tea. This isn't just this isn't gossip or drama. This is literal tea. Let's go. All right, this is what I was hoping for. I was actually trying to find ask around to see if anyone knew about more tea stuff, tea content that I could discuss, and nobody seemed to know any. But thankfully, Hitchens got the hookup, and we got an Orwell essay. There was one by Yoko Ono, but apparently New York Times doesn't want me to read it. You can get mad at them because they didn't want me to read Yoko Ono's article about tea. We could have heard the other side, but we don't get to hear all of the different ideas in the free marketplace of ideas. There's censorship and silencing. All right. George Orwell wrote an article on the making of a decent cup of tea that insisted on the observing of 11 different golden rules. I haven't heard of any of this. I got onto this on my own. I had no idea. I was learning as I go. I would love to hear about some golden rules. I also think nope, we're good. Uh some of these always use Indian or Ceylonese, i.e. Sri Lankan tea. Make only tea in small quantities. Avoid silverware pots. May be considered optional or outmoded. That said, I've a lot of the black teas I have are Ceylon tea, and they are very good. I mean, uh, maybe I don't know. Maybe this American tea I have isn't Ceylon. I think it is though, and maybe that's why it's not so good. Hmm. Avoid silverware pots. Easy, easy. Small quantities. Uh, the only issue I have with the small quantities thing is that sometimes I want to make like a pitcher of iced tea, and I do just make a pot of tea and then put it in a pitcher, right, and cool it. It's the same process. It's just I'm making multiple pots of tea, and if I made it in smaller quantities, it's just like it takes a lot longer. You have to do it a lot more. Also, if I like to drink like maybe this is American to me. I like to drink like a cup of tea. I like a lot of beverage. So if I made like the smaller amount and it's like these little teacups, I just don't get to enjoy it as much. There might be reasons for this, and we'll read the article and see if why. I'm curious if it does it again. Oh, it's just not going to let me. Yeah, wow, that's really interesting. Or that link is broken in this way. We'll read the article and see if there are reasons, but that is the one where I'm like, but I want a lot of tea though. But the essential ones are easily committed to memory, and they are simple to put into practice. If you use a pot at all, make sure it is pre-warmed. Oh, huh. I would add that you should do the same thing even if you are only using a cup or a mug. Stir the tea before letting it steep. This is a little different for me because I don't have the tea leaves loose in the water. Like I said, I have these little strainer balls, or with the pot, there's like a strainer attachment, like you can, that's intended. So that doesn't quite work, but the water does get poured through it. Um, so like you get kind of this effect. But pre-warmed, that's interesting. I'm curious about that. Well, we'll learn when we read Orwell's article. Stir the tea before letting it steep. But this, above all, one should take the teapot to the kettle, not the other way around. The water should be actually boiling at the moment of impact for black tea. Yes. By the way, when he's talking about like Indian or Ceylonese tea, these are black teas, as I understand. But if you're talking about like green tea or white tea, it's very different. Or herbal teas, it's very different. I guess herbal teas are not that different. Usually with herbal teas, you want it boiling. But yeah, green and white teas. And I think there's one other kind of tea that you don't. that you don't use boiling water with, but I don't remember what it is. Which means that one should keep it on the flame while one pours. Oh, wait, hold on. One should take the teapot to the kettle, not the other way around. The water should be actually boiling at the moment of impact, which means one should keep it on the flame while one pours. Oh, so like you're pouring it, but like the flame is underneath. That's interesting. I don't. That seems excessive. Uh, it's going to still be boiling, 2 seconds. I guess it depends on how you do things. Like again with modern technology, my kettle I can put literally adjacent to the teapot on the counter. It doesn't matter, and just pour it right away. There's 2 seconds where it's not being heated and being poured before it's poured. This isn't so hard to do, even if you are using electricity rather than gas. Once you have brought all the makings to the same scene of operations right next to the kettle. Okay, so it doesn't have to be on the flame, but yeah, you should be pouring it like right away. Sure. This might also be different for like green and white teas where excess heat might actually be an issue. In fact, before I was using an electric kettle where I could set the temperature, if I would make green tea, what I would do is I'd use like a typical kettle that you're used to seeing, the one that the song is about, short and stout. Once I get all steamed out, pour me out. Well, I guess that's a teapot, not a kettle. But the ones that like whistle and all this stuff. Like I said, I would look for just the first few wisps of steam. Turn off the flame, remove it from the heat, wait about 30 seconds, and then start pouring just to like monitor the temperature a little bit better. And that worked out very well for me. So probably talking about black teas in particular, but remember they're British. That's what we're talking about. Earl Grey, English breakfast. These are all black teas. And it's not quite over yet. If you use milk, I did warn you. I did warn you about imminent, absurd Britishness. I'm going to take a drink of my American tea, which is bad, but still. We don't put milk in our tea here. Absolute, absolute maniac. I know it's a thing in England. I've tried it. I do not care for that. It's weird and gross. Lemon is another thing, depending on the kind of tea. That sounds like it could be good. I personally just don't like sour that much, and I do like sweet. So like, if I were to put lemon, I would also put sugar, and that's probably a no-no in England. I'm not actually sure, but milk. Oh, you absolute mad lad. Use the least creamy type, or the tea will acquire a sickly taste. Any milk I've used has had that issue. And do not put the milk in the cup first. Yeah, that makes. I didn't know that was a thing. It's like when you make coffee, but I guess if we're talking about whether you put the tea in first, family feuds have lasted generations over this, because you will almost certainly put in too much. Also true. The amount you need is like it's very different. I mean, I'm speaking from the position of putting milk in my coffee. Like you wouldn't think you'd put that little in. My grandfather used to call it. You put in a little pift of milk. Uh, he would make Turkish coffee, and put like this little like a drop of milk, like so little it doesn't even change the color. We're like, are you getting anything out of this? He's like, hey, a little pift of milk. It was great. Oh man, memories. Add it later and be very careful when you pour. Yeah. Finally, a decent cylindrical mug will preserve the needful heat and flavor for longer than will a shallow, wide mouth. How often do those attributes seem to go together? Teacup. So he's talking about the like Alice in Wonderland teacups where it's like you have this kind of bowl-ish shape. I guess mine is closer to the cylindrical, even though it has this like kind of pot base. Orwell thought that sugar overwhelmed the taste. Disagree. But brown sugar or honey are, I believe, permissible and sometimes necessary. I haven't tried brown sugar. That sounds interesting. I'd be interested to give it a go. Honey, though, very, very good in teas. So some people, Amazon Kane, actually, my girlfriend, prefers honey to sugar in her tea. And for chamomile in particular, I find it is an exceptional compliment. Yes, sometimes you can put sugar if you want, if you just like it sweet, but like to the exclusion of sugar, still very, very good. Also with like lemon ginger tea, like lemony teas, Honey is very good with. In fact, my grandmother makes this like blend. It's like I don't even know if you could call it tea, but it's like ginger and lemon ground and mixed together, like put in a food processor, the whole thing, uh, plus some honey and just some hot water. I guess it's kind of a tea, but yeah, don't need any sugar in that. Just lemon, ginger, and honey. Very very good. Until relatively few years ago, practically anything hot and blackish or brackish could be sold in America under the name of coffee. It managed to both. Oh, and some things that aren't even coffee. Like people have long joked about how Starbucks Frappuccinos don't contain coffee anymore. Even when they did, there wasn't very much. That said, people are like, "Oh, this is an abomination." Some people just don't like coffee. Like if they like it, who gives a shit? You know, whatever. People like it. Let them enjoy. It managed both to be an extremely weak and extremely bitter, and it was frequently at boiling point, though it had no call to be. I noticed this a lot with this wave of like cold brew. Almost every time I've gotten some cold brew coffee, it tastes burnt. And I don't know what they're doing where it's always tasting burnt. Like, stop burning the coffee. That's a thing you can do, by the way. It's just like, it doesn't have to be like this, but cold brew in particular, but also like a lot of not cold brew. I've had this exact issue, but never when I make it at home ever. And I make Turkish coffee. I happen to like how strong it is. When I make coffee, I make real real strong coffee. Um, it doesn't ever taste burnt. I don't know how these coffee shops are managing to mess it up so consistently. I use the past tense though. Uh, I use the past tense, though there are many places where this is still true, and it explains why free refills can be offered without compunction. Well, okay, I appreciate the joke. Okay, I get the humor, and it's funny. That said, the free refills are offered because the water and the beans cost them next to nothing. The cup is the closest thing to a price. So if they offer you free refills, you feel like you're getting more value out of it, but it costs them like less than a cent to pour you that free refill, where the cup costs them like 13 cents or whatever. Obviously, like a lot of the price is built in is to other things like you know paying their employees or paying to have these things shipped, yada yada, etc. uh, but even still, the amount that factors into the water and coffee they give you is minuscule. Costs them basically nothing. At least in major cities, consumers now have a better idea how to stick up for themselves, often to an irksome degree, as we know from standing behind people who are too precious about their latte or whatever it's called. First of all, lattes are delicious. Second of all, uh, you say that, but you're the one who wanted who wanted people to stand up for themselves and to take issue. Well, you can't have it both ways, my guy. I get it. Again, I get it. He's joking. Is funny. You don't approve of milk and tea? I just noticed that, Kim Gal. I listen. You do you. It's kind of like people. It's your. It's. I guess yeah. I guess I have lattes and I do like milk and tea. Well, I guess it's coffee, not tea. But every time I've tried milk and tea, it's been pretty gross. Even with teas that are made with that in mind. Like there are some blends. I forget what the kind was. If Amazon Kane's in chat, she can help me out. Is the one that tasted like butter. Um, where like it was intended to be with tea, or even like oolong, which she likes with milk. Excuse me, not with tea, with milk. But no, it's always been gross to me. Obviously, I mean, it's what other people do doesn't bother me. If you want to do everything wrong and have a garbage cup of tea, like that's up to you. And if you like it, I'm glad you enjoy it. This kind of reminds me a little bit of the thing about how you have like pepper. Well, one, pineapple on pizza, and two, how you cook your steaks. Because people will get so angry if they think you're doing it wrong. It's like you're not eating it. Why does it bother you? Like people will, like, I've seen people be like, oh, this person likes well done steaks. They're like, it's an abomination to, like, you don't even like steak. And I'm like, no, they do. They just like it this way. And I get that you wouldn't like it that way, but you don't have to eat it. And it's the same thing with the tea. Like, I think it's gross. And if someone offered me milk with my tea, I would decline. But no, I don't think it's like, I don't have like only if I were making a joking article like this would I oppose in principle the concept of putting milk in your tea. And don't get me wrong, I would do that. It would be very funny to have an article. Like, we're reading this article. It's very funny. But I don't actually care that much. Have you had a chai latte? I've had lattes. I don't know if I've had a chai latte. Maybe I might like that. Might be good. It does sound good. I've had chai. I've had latte. That does sound like it would be good. Maybe that would be my exception. But most teas, every time I've tried milk and tea, it's been disgusting. At best, at worst, sorry, it's been disgusting at worst. At best, it's been not noticeable, save for the fact that you taste the tea a lot less. It does dilute things. It's not quite like watering it down, but close to it, because the milk seems not to get infused with the tea flavor. If that were possible, maybe it'd be a different thing. I don't know. Maybe I'll try a chai latte at some point. Maybe that'll change my mind. But for the most part, that sounds like anytime I've had milk and tea is not good. Uh, Also, even in 2011, this criticism about like the people who were too picky at Starbucks was a little dated, right? This is a little like, oh god, all right, congratulations, 2008 called, they want their joke back, and then 1992 called and wanted the joke I just said back. Uh, Next time you're in a Starbucks or its equivalent and want some tea, yeah, okay, see, there's your problem. Don't go to Starbucks for tea. First of all, they're a coffee shop. They have tea because it's expected. But second of all, like, of course you're not gonna get good tea from Starbucks. It's Starbucks. They're not known for good coffee. They're known for coffee, and tea isn't their big thing. They have their Tazo tea bags or whatever, and then that's about it. You want good tea, you go to a tea shop, or you make your own. You want good tea, like these. There are tea shops that exist, or even just like smaller cafes that put a little effort into their tea. Some will even have people making their own blends or whatever. This is your problem. Don't go to Starbucks. It's not where you should get tea from. Yeah, I don't know. It's like going to a Mexican restaurant and ordering a hamburger. They might do it fine, but that's not what they're known for. They don't have a particular interest in getting that particularly right. Uh, and you should get something that's intended. If you want a good hamburger, go to a hamburger place. Don't be afraid to decline the hasty cup of hot water with its added bag. And this is what I was saying before. If you go to Starbucks, like they just have the box. It's easy. You just pick it up at the counter, and then they'll hand you the hot water elsewhere. It's just so much easier for them, especially if they have a huge line of people. It's not what you asked for. I do. I appreciate. I have to know it was. Hitchens was too smart for this to not be a knowing joke, where he's talking about people like being too precise about their drink at Starbucks, and then be like, "No, don't accept the tea and water and the and water separately. It's not what you asked for. Insist on seeing the tea put in first, and I'm making sure the water is boiling." These damn Karens. I mean, the term wasn't in popular. It was like the term Karen wasn't being used in this way. Like these Karens and complain about their latte is a problem, but you need to be one about your tea. He had to know, right? Like he was too smart not to know. That has to be like an intentional part of the joke, I assume. If there are murmurs or sighs from behind you, see exactly. It's literally exact. Standing behind. It's too identical. He had to know. That's so funny. Take the opportunity to spread the word. And try it at home with loose tea and a strainer if you have the patience. Don't trouble to thank me. Happy New Year. Thank you, Kemgal. You suggested this article to me yesterday. I quite enjoyed it. And we have more reading to do on the subject. Let's see what George Orwell has to say about it. And there's some other links. I mean, we just read this one, but there's Douglas Adams, How to Make a Cup of Tea. This is the author of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Also not too long. Yeah, we're doing tea content today. How to make a perfect cuppa? Okay, hold on. Who is this by? Who is this by? Where's the author? Does not have an author here? I can just hear Hitchens saying those words. Funny. Yeah, right? Like you can almost hear him like in his like British seriousness as he's clearly joking. Like he if you haven't I mean, I know you have, Kemgal, but like if anyone hasn't seen Hitchens do this thing. It's so hard to describe where he has all the like affectation of seriousness and like this serious British voice, but he's clearly joking, and it's like a particular brand of deadpan that is so funny. And yeah, you can kind of hear it happening, especially with that last paragraph where it's like, "Hey, be that person that I was literally just complaining about in the previous paragraph." Like this is like I'm going to say this unironically so you can like have the amusement of the irony which I intended. Who wrote this article? Cuppa is a thing. I thought this was a Australia New Zealand thing, not a British thing. But who the hell is the article on this? Is the author doesn't? Oh, there's a questionnaire. All right, we'll get to that one. We're doing tea content. All right, let's keep it going. This one's Orwell. All right, we got Orwell. Let's go. If you look up a nice cup of tea. If you look up tea in the first cookery book that comes to hand, you will probably find that it is unmentioned, or at most you will find a few lines of sketchy instructions which give no ruling on several of the most important points. Very true. Like tea making, so highly cultural that like it's impossible to find instruction. Because why would you? Everybody knows how to make it. You learn through osmosis, like so many other things, like what a woman is, for example. You just like see people talk about it, see people do it. You just kind of know. But if you're like, oh, how do I know if I'm doing it wrong, or like if there are tips on how yeah, it's not going to be in a cookbook. Thankfully, we still have American tea to offset additional Britishness. It's not good tea, but it's tea. This is curious, not because tea is one of the mainstays of civilization in this country, as well in not even gonna try Australia and New Zealand. Is this supposed to be like Ireland? Um, I don't know. Australia and New Zealand, but because the best manner of making it is subject of violent disputes, is a subject of violent disputes. Yeah, I'm sure people get very up in arms about it, uh, either jokingly or otherwise. When I look through my own recipe for the perfect cup of tea, I find no fewer than 11 outstanding points. On perhaps two of them there would be pretty general agreement, but at least four others are actually controversial. Acutely controversial. I can read. I'm literate. It's real. I can do that. Um, Here are my own 11 rules, every one of which I regard as golden. Oh, Hitchens disagrees. Already we are seeing disagreement just from two articles. And an implication of disagreement from a third one as yet unread and well likely impossible to read. Um, or at present inaccessible. First of all, one should use Indian or Ceylonese tea. China tea has virtues which are not to be despised nowadays. It is economical and one can drink it without milk, but there is not much stimulation in it. Oh, I thought he meant like don't use like British teas. It's like, oh no, well I don't know what the difference. I don't know if I've had any Chinese black tea. Of course, we're talking about British tea, so it's almost certainly all black tea. If you put milk in green tea, oh my God, please don't, please, for the betterment of society. Uh, but you should drink all of these without milk. One does not feel wiser, braver, or more optimistic after drinking it. Why would you expect that? Anyone who has used that comforting phrase, a nice cup of tea, invariably means Indian tea. Secondly, tea should be made in small quantities, that is, in a teapot. Tea out of an urn is always tasteless, while army tea made in a cauldron tastes of grease and whitewash. Oh, when he's talking about small quantities, he's talking bigger than I thought. I thought he meant like, you shouldn't have this like big ass cup of tea like I do. He just means like, no, like a teapot is fine. Don't make like a giant cauldron of tea because they're like passing out to a huge number of soldiers. Very funny, by the way, that like the British Army is like, well, we have to figure out how we get tea to everyone, don't we? Like, well, we'll make a lot of it and it's not good, but everyone gets tea, which is a necessity. Um, that said, I've also seen varying size in teapots. Mine is probably bigger than most. It makes about like two and a half of these cups worth of tea. Whereas I've seen some that are like this big and they make, like maybe like half of this. The teapot should be made of china or earthenware. Silver or Britannia ware teapots produce inferior tea, and enamel pots are worse. See, modern technology. I have a glass teapot. I wonder what he thinks about that. Like, it's not anything here. Though curiously enough, a pewter teapot, a rarity nowadays, is not so bad. Thirdly, the pot should be warmed beforehand. This is better done by placing the hob than the usual method of swilling it out with hot water. Placing it on the hob, is that like on the heat or whatever? I don't know what that means. Oh, we're getting more Britishness than expected. We don't get a reason why. I'm curious why. If it's for infusing, maybe this isn't so necessary anymore. I don't really know. Fourthly, the tea should be strong. Agreed. I like really strong tea. Not everybody does, and that's not like you're not wrong for having less strong tea, but I do also prefer strong tea. For a pot holding a quart, if you are going to oh, okay, so he's talking about like pretty big pots. If you are going to fill it nearly to the brim, 6 heaped teaspoons would be about right. Oh, I don't make it nearly. Don't put nearly that much, but I also think my tea is a lot stronger than what he's talking about. Um, I've had the place I get the tea from. They have like recommendations. One of them was like, oh yeah, a teaspoon for a cup is about right, and I found like 2/3 of a teaspoon is actually very good, and like the additional third doesn't actually change how strong it is. Also, if you steep it longer with less tea, that can make up for having less of it, but not always, and it only goes so far. In a time of rationing, this is not an idea that can be realized on every day of the week, but I maintain that one strong cup of tea is better than 20 weak ones. I would probably agree. But also, like, it's a time of rationing. It's literally right after World War II. All true tea lovers not only like their tea strong, but like it a little stronger with each year that passes. I don't know if I hold to this. But, it was a different time. Also, again, very British. Strong opinions about tea. A fact which is recognized in the extra ration issued to old age pensioners. uh, is he gonna numberly every single one? It looks like it. Fifthly, the tea should be put straight into the pot. No strainers, muslin bags, or any other devices to imprison the tea. Uh, I think it depends on what kind of strainer, right? Because like I said, I use these metal strainers where the water comes through it. It's not like a cloth that you're like muslin or whatever where the um like the water doesn't necessarily get there. Well, no, it always does. Yeah, I don't know. But like the water goes into the strainer for me. So I don't know. I don't know why this is. In some countries, teapots are fitted with little dangling baskets under the spout to catch the stray leaves. Yeah, I have one like that, which are supposed to be harmful. Actually, one can swallow tea leaves in considerable quantities without ill effects. If the tea is not loose in the pot, it never infuses it properly. I'll try this. We'll see. I can give this a shot. I was not under the impression that it was harmful. It's just like, you want to finish up your cup of tea and drink the rest of it. You don't want to like be on the lookout for like where all the little bits and bobs are, right? Like these are dried plants. You don't necessarily want to swallow it. It's a little uncomfortable. It's a little gross, even if it's not harmful. I wouldn't assume it's harmful, but you know, I just thought you wouldn't want to drink it. That's why they have like the dregs in the cup. In fact, anyone who's read Harry Potter remembers the like reading the tea leaf scene. That's where it comes from. You have the leaves loose in the pot, and when you pour your cup, there's some in there. You don't want to drink it. The stuff at the bottom is the dregs that you don't drink because it's all the like little tea bits. And that's what they were reading. That was something that was like it took me a little while to figure out because it's a very British or like I guess not American way of drinking tea. And so it took me a while. I was like, what the hell are you talking about? What tea leaves are in there? And I had no idea how to make tea. I was like, oh, okay, there's probably something like this is what's going on. Sixthly, one should take the teapot to the kettle and not the other way about. The other way about, another violently British phrasing. The water should actually be boiling at the moment of impact, which means that one should keep it on the flame while one pours. Some people add that one should only use water that has been freshly brought to the boil, but I have never noticed that it makes any difference. Yeah, I also don't notice much of a difference, though I do like. Yeah, I don't know. No, actually, it's not. I don't even really have anything. Yeah. Seventhly, after making the tea, one should stir it, or better, give the pot a good shake afterwards, allowing the leaves to settle. Uh, yeah, stirring it often goes a long way because of how my teapot is is built with that strainer at the top. It's kind of hard to. I don't really have a means of stirring. I try to sometimes get into the strainer and stir the little bit that I can, but it does help. It does help infuse more quickly. Eighthly, one should drink out of a good breakfast cup, that is, the cylindrical type of cup, not the flat, shallow type. The breakfast cup holds more, and I'm glad he appreciates that too. All right, so my particular proclivities are not holding me back here. And with the other kind, one's tea is always half cold before one has well started on it. My guess is that was actually a feature and not a bug. They probably wanted, like, you're having high society, you have your tea poured, you don't want to wait 20 minutes before you can drink your tea or whatever. I guess it depends on how hot you want your tea, but my guess is the like really fancy teacups with the wide top are probably that way specifically so they cool more quickly. But yeah, you don't want it cooling too fast either. One thing I do like about this construction is that this pot at the bottom does allow a lot of heat to get retained. So when I get to the bottom, it's still warm. I'm guessing Orwell would actually approve of this pot more than the cylindrical ones for that reason. Ninthly, one should pour the cream off the milk before using it for tea. Milk that is too creamy always gives tea a sickly taste. Alternatively, and hear me out on this one, don't ruin your tea with milk. You could just not do that. Again, I don't care. It's what other people do. If you like it, you like it. But, I don't. I think it's bad. Tenthly, one should pour the tea into the cup first. This is one of the most controversial points of all. Indeed, in every family in Britain, there are probably two schools of thought on the subject. The milk first school can bring forward some fairly strong arguments, but I maintain that my own argument is unanswerable. Well, given that we're not here, we haven't yet heard what they are, I don't think we're going to hear what the argument for milk first, but that seems just, if you don't pour milk in your tea, you don't have to have this argument. Just throw that out there. This is that, by putting the tea in first and stirring as one pours, one can exactly regulate the amount of milk, whereas one is liable to put in too much milk if one does the other way around. For my experience with coffee, I find that's true. And stirring while you're pouring the tea, that's interesting. I'm going to try that at some point. Again, it's a little difficult because of like the specific stuff I have. Maybe I'll even try getting one of those infusers. There are these the infusers that I'm thinking of, you can get online. They're basically like, it looks like a little, like a teacup with a saucer, but at the bottom there are holes in it, so you put it on top of your teacup and then you pour it through, and the idea is that like it should infuse as it's pouring and it won't just sit in there. I wonder if there's an advantage to that. I guess I could try it out at some point. Lastly, tea, unless one is drinking it in the Russian style, should be drunk without sugar. Disagree. I know very well that I am in the minority here. Ah, so you know you're wrong. But still, how could you call yourself a true tea lover? How dare you? If you destroy the flavor of your tea by putting sugar in it, excuse you, sir. Sugar often complements and brings out the flavor. Oftentimes, if I have tea without some sweetening agent, sugar, honey, something like that, I don't taste much of the flavor of the tea. I mostly taste like the hot water, but with the sugar, I taste both the tea and the sugar. It complements it. Kind of in the same way that salt brings out the flavor in certain things. It's not just that you're tasting the saltiness now, is that it brings out the other flavors, and now you're able to taste them better. It would be equally reasonable to put in pepper or salt. What? Tea is meant to be bitter. It's not meant to be anything. Tea is meant to be a drink. It's not. There's no like divine determination that is supposed to be bitter. I hate this like meant to be type thinking. It's not meant to be anything. It just is. Oh no, sounds awful. Yeah, I mean, there's a part of me that's like, I kind of want to try it now. But yeah, it does sound awful. That would be like, we'll do it on a dare. You know what? We can make that like a subscriber milestone. All right, if we get, hold on, let me check my channel dashboard. I don't even know if people can subscribe to my channel yet. I don't know how many people you need. Um, Try it and let us know. I'm not going to do this on my own. All right, all right. We have I have a plan now. I have an idea. All right. All right. I don't think you can subscribe to me yet. It doesn't look like it. No, no, I don't have enough people. We get to 50 followers. If we get to 50 followers on stream, I will make myself a cup of tea. We'll put salt or pepper in it. We'll decide, and that will be my tea for the day. All right. We gotta we got a challenge out there. And it's not that big a deal. 50 followers. Is that much? I don't think that's very much. I have about 30 subscribers on YouTube, not that many, you know. But if we get to 50 followers here on Kick, tell your friends. I will do that. That'll be my challenge. And we'll have further incentives. We'll do the other one if we get, if we reach that goal. We'll pick salt or pepper. We'll do one of them. We'll do the other one for like another milestone. All right? That's the challenge. That's the milestone we're laying out. I should have like a little thing here of like our follower goal. All right, Camille. We got to settle a deal. All right. Tell your friends. You can make me have a really truly disgusting cup of tea for the low cost of telling your friends about my channel. Tea is meant to be bitter. No, it's not. Just as beer is meant to be bitter. No, it is not necessarily. Uh, if you sweeten it, it happens to be bitter. But like some teas, you go out of your way to prevent bitterness, like green tea, as I was mentioning before. You intentionally do not boil the water, and you do not let it steep too long, specifically so it does not get bitter. If you sweeten it, you are no longer tasting the tea. Disagree. Incorrect. You are merely tasting the sugar. Not entirely true. You could make a very similar drink by dissolving sugar in hot plain water. I think it is relevantly different, but also, I mean, I just like sugar. I don't necessarily know that I'd hate that. No, I feel like that would be different. That would definitely be different. And worse. Some people would answer that they don't like tea in itself, that they only drink it in order to be warmed and stimulated, and they need sugar to take the taste away. Why is this in a different paragraph and not part of this thing? Yeah, I knew some people like that. I think my mom just like sometimes would just like drinking hot water. It's not about the taste. Now that said, she likes tea and coffee also, but it's not about. Sometimes it's not about the taste. It's about the warm drink, and that's really all she would want in that case. But it would vary. And sometimes just like hot water with lemon is a thing a lot of people have. In fact, I think professional singers will drink hot water with lemon a lot because it's good for your voice or something. That's what I've heard anyway. To those misguided people, I would say, try drinking tea without sugar for, say, a fortnight, and it is very unlikely that you will ever want to ruin your tea by sweetening it again. I have tried this. No. Actually, the opposite. I very quickly was like, nope, this is worse. These are not the only controversial points to arise in connection with tea drinking, but are sufficient to show how subtilized the whole business has become. I thought he mentioned something about like honey being okay, or maybe that was just Hitchens. There is also the mysterious social etiquette surrounding the teapot. Why it is considered vulgar to drink out of your saucer? Why is it considered vulgar to drink out of your saucer, for instance? So funny story about that. Uh, that's probably a cultural shift, and you might go like, wait, who would ever do that? As it turns out, the reason a saucer is like there, why it exists, it's not just like to hold your teacup. Like we do that now, but apparently, and the like founding fathers have written about this. Like I think it was Jefferson wrote something about how the Senate was to be the cooling saucer for the hot tea of or for the hot coffee of the House of Representatives. The analogy being that it's like when you have coffee. You have it in your in your cup, and you pour it into the saucer to cool, and then you drink it out of the saucer because that's how it was done. And it's absolutely buck wild. Like just imagine, like literally Thomas Jefferson like got his little saucer, he's lapping it up like a little cat or whatever. But apparently that's how it was done, and it's funny that like now it's Orwell's noting it's considered vulgar because like it's so weird that eventually it fell out of fashion. And now we often like don't have a saucer with our tea anyway. Like some 80 years after the fact. Interesting. Easier for kids that way too, I guess. But I don't think coffee was much of a children's drink. Even then. Cat Curl Jefferson. Someone tell Contra. So true, Amazon came. So true. Oh, now that you're here, actually, what was that tea we had? You brought it over. It was this like I forget what it was called, but it tasted like kind of like butter. Do you remember what that was? I was mentioning it earlier. Is even like because that was kind of intended to have milk in it, and I still found it was worse with it. I don't know if you remember what kind of tea it was. It was this like purple. It was like this purple plant thing. I mean, drinking tea out of a saucer easier for kids. Oh yeah, I'm sure. Uh, but I don't know if that was part of the idea. It was ube latte from the tea drops. Yeah. It was ube. It was an ube tea, and that was like we were talking about putting milk in tea earlier, and I was saying like even with that tea where it was pretty clearly intended to have tea with. I think it even came with packets of like cream or something. Um, I found that the like I didn't really like the milk in there. And much might be written about the subsidiary uses of tea leaves, such as telling fortunes, predicting the arrival of visitors, feeding rabbits, healing burns, and sweeping the carpet. Whoa, sweeping the carpet? How do you use tea leaves for this? Um, but also, what's wrong with feeding rabbits tea leaves? They can have tea too, can't they? I don't know if it's healthy for them, but if it is, yeah, they can have tea leaves. Sure, why not? It is worth paying attention to such details as warming the pot and using water that is really boiling so as to make quite sure of wringing out one's rations of the 20 good strong cups that 2 ounces properly handled ought to represent. So another note about this, some of this advice might be because the rationing was a really big deal, right? You're trying to get the most out of it. Some of these might not be as important if scarcity is less of an issue for you. And maybe this is why I don't find like some of these tips are more optional now. But that was what George Orwell had to say on the subject. I think we've opened both of these other uh international standard for brewing tea. All right, hold on. All right. Oh, there's like a whole uh oh, there's a wiki about it. All right. So let's look at the so ISO 3103 is a standard published by the International Organization for Standardization. That's funny. Specifying standardized method for brewing tea, possibly sampled by the standardized methods described in ISO 1839. All right, so let's see what the details of this one are. This should be pretty quick. Oh, and there's criticism. The protocol has been criticized for omitting any mention of pre-warming the pot. Oh, yeah, Ireland was the only country to object, and objected on on technical grounds. So apparently, pre-warming the pot is not. Maybe they got that from Orwell, but I can't imagine he made it up. He must have heard it from somewhere. All right. To maintain consistent results, the following are recommendations given by the standard. The pot should be white porcelain or glazed earthenware and have a partially serrated edge. Why? It should have a lid that fits loosely inside the pot. Um, this also. Okay, so this was like won a Nobel Prize. In like okay, so this is from when it was revised in December 2019. Yeah, no one ever mentions the glass pot, and I don't know if that's like cool or not. I have one. That's what I use. All right, I guess I'll look into white porcelain. All right, we're gonna save this. We're gonna save this one because I'll forget. Um, I'll come back to this at some point. As like is like if I'm trying to up my tea game. If a large pot is used, it should hold a maximum of 310 milliliters and must weigh 200 grams. Okay, obviously part of this is like a joke of like we're standardizing. It's the International Organization for Standardization. It's like kind of a joke, right? Um, uh, so it's not like that it's this specific is part of it. Um, if a small pot is used, it should hold a maximum of 150 milliliters and must weigh 118 grams. Okay. 2 grams of tea measured to 2 plus or minus 2% accuracy per 100 milliliters boiling water is placed into the pot. Right, this is kind of I appreciate this like subtle joke. This like running the joke of the whole thing being hyper specificity, because we're standardizing this. Very unstandard practice. Standardizing tea sounds like your cup of tea. I see what you did there. All right. Freshly boiling water is poured into the pot within 4 to 6 millimeters of the brim. Allow 20 seconds for water to cool. The water should be similar to the drinking water where the tea will be consumed. Brewing time is 6 minutes. If the brewed tea is then poured into a white porcelain or glazed earthenware bowl, I believe this qualifies. Oh, and because you missed it, Amazon Kane, this is my American tea to offset the violent Britishness that we're experiencing. If a large bowl is used, it must have a capacity of 380 milliliters and weigh 200 grams. If a small bowl is used, it must have a capacity of 200 milliliters and weigh 105 grams. If the test involves milk, no. If we're standardizing, it doesn't involve milk. No, let's standardize the no milk, milklessness. Then it is to be added. It is added to the bowl before pouring the infused tea into it, unless that is contrary to the organization's normal practice. Wow, even they are like realizing how controversial that is. That even their standardization is like, this is the way it's to be done, unless you do it otherwise. In which case you do. It's great. If milk is added after pouring the tea, the standard notes that the best results are obtained when the liquid is between 65 and 80 degrees Celsius. 5 milliliters of milk for the large bowl or 2.5 milliliters for the small bowl is used. I have several criticisms of this, but that is very funny. All right, so we have the standardization. Now, do we want to do this article of... we'll do this one last because it has a poll at the end. So we'll learn as much as we can, and then we'll read this apparently authorless article. I don't see anywhere who the author is. Like if I'm just missing it, someone point it out to me. But I do not see who the author is supposed to is. I don't see an author listed. Yeah, I don't see one anywhere. All right, Douglas Adams, a wacky fella who is, in my opinion, an interesting writer. I've only read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And, as I mentioned yesterday, only books 1 and 2, because book 3 was missing from my school library, and I just fell away from it there. But it did have book 4, whose title I remember is very funny. It's Goodbye, So Long, and Thanks for All the Fish. Whereas it's the story of like the dolphins leaving Earth. Even book 2 is pretty funny because it's it's called The End of the Universe, but it's the restaurant at the end of the universe. Not meaning that it's at the end of time when the universe is about to end, meaning it's at the edge of the universe. If you go any further, there's no more universe left to go in. It's a subtler joke, but I do like so long, farewell, and thanks for all the fish. All right, so this is just entitled "Tea" by it's supposed to be an excerpt from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy Earth Edition. That's pretty funny. Could be that one Star Trek restaurant that we saw in a horrible SNL sketch. Oh God, don't remind me, please. One or two Americans have asked me why it is that the English like tea so much, which never seems to them to be a very good drink. Well, you have to understand, we have ideological issues with tea, with the whole harbor thing and all. It is kind of funny, by the way, that tea was so important to the early Americans, and by early Americans I mean like the founders of the country, that they were willing to like get drunk and do a riot about it, and do a domestic terrorism about it. But now we just don't drink tea that much. We just don't like it. Like now we don't really care. And it's kind of funny to be like, oh yeah, it used to be that we cared so much about the tax that we started a war over that shit. Not really, kind of, but To understand, you have to know how to make it properly. There is a very simple principle to the making of tea, and it's this. To get the proper flavor of tea, the water has to be boiling, not boiled, when it hits the leaves. If it's merely hot, then the tea will be insipid. That's why we English have these odd rituals, such as warming the teapot first, so as not to cause the boiling water to cool down too fast as it hits the pot. Finally, we get an explanation. All right, we're gonna try this. I think my teapot is actually, um, I think it's actually stove safe. I'll double check before I try it. Don't get me wrong. So I could probably like warm it on low heat before I put the water in. Though if it's empty, that might be an issue. I'll look into it. But I'm gonna try warming my teapot. I might just do something as simple as um, like warming, like warming some water in another pot and like putting the teapot in that before I pour the tea. You know. But we're gonna try it. We are gonna try that. Oh, also Amazon Kane, you missed. We have established a challenge. We have a follower goal. It had been suggested by George Orwell that putting sugar in tea is you might as well put salt or pepper in it, which sounds awful, but I was like kind of interested. I was like, I wonder if we can try this. So if I get to 50 followers on Kick, we're gonna try one of those. We'll figure out which one, and then we'll have another. After that, we'll have another goal to try the other one. All right. I'll have the worst tea one could imagine. Oh, I guess you can imagine one. I have some really, really bad tea for you and your and your support of my channel. So get the word out. You're hyped. If you're hyped, get the word out. All right. I got 50 subscribers. All right, or 50 followers. People can't subscribe just yet. I would love to get to the point where people can subscribe, and at that point, then we can have sub goals like having really terrible cups of tea, and not just like terrible because this tea is not very good. I mean like terrible, like we're making it bad. And that's why the American habit of bringing a teacup, a tea bag, and a pot of hot water to the table is merely the perfect way of making a thin, pale, watery cup of tea that nobody in their right mind would want to drink. Some of this I kind of agree. Like, yeah, why? It seems weird to bring it to the table like that. Usually I pour the tea and then bring it to somebody. Um, there will be occasions where I'll bring the remainder of a pot to the table, but like it's already been infused. It's just the drink is getting cold at that point, but there's not much you can do about that. The Americans are all mystified about why the English make such a big thing out of tea because most Americans have never had a good cup of tea. That might be true, but that might just be a cultural thing. Like it's not hard to have a good cup of tea. Like just like I did growing up, just boil some water, pour it over the tea bag. It's not amazing, but it's good. That's why they don't understand. In fact, the truth of the matter is that most English people don't know how to make tea anymore either. And most people drink cheap instant coffee instead, which is a pity and gives Americans the impression that the English are just generally clueless about hot stimulants. Uh, I mean, if even y'all are switching to coffee, maybe the art is being lost to the ages, and that is the import of research streams like this of hot tea content. All right, we got hot tea, and we gotta understand a bit. All right, there's always tea being spilt on the internet. Today we're not spilling it. We're learning how to make it better. So the best advice I can give to an American arriving in England is this: go to Marks and Spencer and buy a packet of Earl Grey tea. First error: buying tea bags. Go get loose leaf. You want some good stuff. But I guess to a new person, you don't want to be like, all right, now you're gonna have to learn how to make loose leaf tea. Go back to where you're staying and boil a kettle of water. While it is coming to the boil, open the sealed packet and sniff. Yes, the smell of loose leaf tea. Oh, so good. In fact, I mentioned Celestial Seasonings earlier. I don't know if they do loose leaf tea, but I have been to their factory in Boulder, Colorado, and I don't remember tons of it, but one thing I do remember is they have rooms of like the different teas and whatever, and the ingredients. They have a peppermint room. It's just like giant room. I shouldn't say giant. Like it's big. It's a big room full of peppermint, and they tell you like, hey, when you walk in, if you have clogged sinus, it'll clear up immediately, and if you don't, your eyes will start to water. And they weren't kidding. As soon as I walked in, my nose immediately cleared up and eyes watering. It was overwhelming smell, but it did smell very good. It was kind of neat in a similar way, to a lesser extent. When I make tea for people, I do often offer them to smell the tea because it does smell oh so very good. Herbal teas I find smell better than like black teas, but still, Smells great. And chamomile. Well, I guess that chamomile's an herbal tea. Careful, you may feel a bit dizzy, but this is in fact perfectly legal. Just huffing tea. Now I've got the sense of like, there's the like stereotype of the burnout high school kid who like is maybe burnout's the wrong word, but like that loser high school kid who's in the basement huffing glue. But in England, they're huffing tea. They're just like, oh yeah, get that English breakfast. Ooh, Earl Grey, it's so good. But it does go to show that the British apparently do find tea intoxicating. They are a bit wacky about it. I'm picturing the LA juice cleanser health nut huffing peppermint. Yeah. I mean, that wouldn't be bad. I do have congestion issues all the time. If I just had like a little bag of like some peppermint, just, ooh, we're good. Like, that'd be great, actually. And it's like nothing wrong with it. It's just all natural. Maybe I should just get some peppermint. I'm gonna make a shopping list at the end of the stream. God, like chamomile plant, peppermint, uh, an earthen, an earthen teapot. When the kettle is boiled, pour a little of it into a teapot, swirl it around, and tip it out again. Oh, okay. This isn't tea bags. All right, this is loose leaf tea. Put a couple or three, depending on the size of the pot, of tea bags. No, it is okay. It is tea bags. God, making a pot of tea with tea bags? That's so weird. Into the pot. If I was really trying to lead you into the paths of righteousness, I would tell you to lose free leaves rather than bags. Hell yeah. But let's just take this in easy stages. Yeah, that's kind of what I figured. All right, right there with you. Right there with you, Douglas Adams. Bring the kettle back up to a boil, and then pour the boiling water as quickly as you can into the pot. Let it stand for 2 or 3 minutes. The time for this, by the way, varies a lot. I usually go kind of on a feel rather than a timer. You can time it, but like I said, there's a lot of variance with types of tea, and the amount that you put in, especially with loose leaf, it's not an exact thing, right? It's a lot of like estimates and whatever. You put a pinch of that, a dash of this, and so it varies. I usually look for like color and smell to get a sense of when it's good. With green tea, it's a little different. You have to be a little stricter about it because, as I say, if you leave it for too long, it will get bitter. Uh, but it varies. When I make Thai tea, for example, I actually let it sit for like 10 minutes or something like that. More than that, because I want to really get that flavor in there, especially knowing that it's going to, in addition to having sugar put in it, it's going to be mixed with half and half, which I guess is an exception to my instance, like my liking milk and tea. It doesn't make Thai tea much better. That was a difficulty I had for a while. I thought they just put milk in it, and I could not understand why it when I made it, it was so much worse than when I get it at a restaurant. And then I asked one of them, they're like, "Oh, it's half and half." As soon as I did that, instantly, super good. That's all it took. It was really that easy. I was so close. And then pour it into a cup. Some people will tell you that you shouldn't have milk with Earl Grey, like people who are sane, like people with good taste. They will tell you that. Just a slice of lemon. I haven't tried this. This could be good, but I do like sugar. So you know what? Next time I have that, I do have that Dorian Earl Grey. It's not exactly Earl Grey because it's kind of a blend. Uh, I'll put in some lemon. We'll see how I like that. I'll even put the slice directly in there and I'll squeeze it out and put the whole thing in there and see how it is. We'll do that. Screw them. I like it with milk. Well, you're wrong, Douglas. You're wrong. Nah. If you shouldn't have milk with Earl Grey, or sorry, if you think you would like it with milk, then it's uh, probably best to put some milk into the bottom of the cup before you pour the tea in. See, this is socially incorrect. The socially correct way of pouring tea is to put the milk in after the tea. Social correctness has traditionally had nothing whatever to do with reason, logic, or physics. In fact, in England, it is generally considered socially incorrect to know stuff or think about things. It is worth bearing this in mind when visiting. But you're wrong. Like, I don't know. That one is like the least defensible. But I love his defense of it. Yes, it's socially incorrect, but so are lots of things like thinking. So being socially correct is often has nothing to do with logic, and so you're wrong. No actual justification. I love it. This is how you take things too seriously in a funny way. This is exactly, by the way, I know we haven't done it yet. I have to reach out to my friend who wanted to who gave me the idea for this. The idea behind the these are the questions thing that I've wanted to do, where we take silly questions way too seriously, and this is the exact idea of like, yeah, this is all really silly, and you're not gonna like violate the Geneva Convention if you put the milk in first, because the Geneva Convention is lacking in its guidelines. However, in a sane world, you would be, and I've lost the plot of what I was talking about. No, what I'm saying is like obviously it's not that important, but it's fun to like pretend it is, and treat it with all this all this faux seriousness. If you pour milk into a cup of hot tea, you will scald the milk. Well, okay, maybe, but I would argue that that would happen the other way, and also if you didn't pour milk in at all, then this wouldn't happen to you. In fact, in all the times I've never put milk in my tea, I've never scalded the milk. Not once. True story. The essential oils type. It took me a minute before I saw that. What were you referring to, Amazon Kane? Sorry, I don't always check chat as often as I should. If you think you will prefer it with a slice of lemon, then well, add a slice of lemon. I These might not be mutually exclusive, though. I guess milk and lemon would be like kind of weird to have together. But lemon, I see you can like put honey or and lemon or sugar and lemon. It's just an additional flavor. I'm gonna try this. The lemon does sound like it could be good. Drink it. I do like the inclusion of like then you drink your tea. You're an American. You might not know. All right. I want to be clear. Don't mess this part up. Then you drink the tea. Don't skip that. After a few moments, you'll begin to think that the place you've come to isn't maybe quite so strange after all. Well, I don't know. If in England it's considered generally socially incorrect to know stuff or think about things, maybe it is maybe it is crazy. Well, I guess never mind. We're talking an American going there. Never mind. Never mind. It's the same thing. Never mind. I forgot. My bad. Yeah, I take it all back. It's not strange. Not strange at all. I'm the weird one. So that was Douglas Adams. Now we've got whoever the hell this is. I still haven't found it. I was looking through it. I mean, I've looked through it a couple of times. I still have no idea who the author is of this article, but we will we'll see what they have to say, and I'm excited for the survey at the end. Oh, it's like a quiz. Never mind. It's not a survey. It's a quiz. Get ready. Get your number two pencils out and your scantrons. All right, we're gonna take a quiz. All right, pop quiz time. I bet you didn't know that when you went to a stream you were gonna get a pop quiz. Well, you are. I hope you studied. Let's get into it. How to make a perfect cuppa. First of all, give me my American tea. I believe it's Ceylon tea, so at least Orwell's not mad about it. But ooh, cuppa. Yeah. Also, I was under the impression that like cuppa specifically means tea, right? It's not like you can have like a cup of Joe. I assume that's where it comes from, like a cup of something. But like, it always means tea, right? I don't know if anyone is um, regrettably British in chat, but it doesn't just mean like a cup of something, right? It means a cup of tea specifically, which is appropriate here. I just want to double check my slang. Uh, Many people ask no more than what their tea that their tea be wet and warm. Oh, I don't like that. I don't like that description. But I think I'm not a fan of the term cuppa either. It sounds weird and overly cutesy. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know about the. I do agree that sounds weird. To me, it sounds like maybe not cutesy. It feels a little like it's too British. I think like you can hear the accent, right? I also thought it was a. I also thought it was specifically a Australia New Zealand thing and not Britain else like any other British cultures. That was my understanding, but I don't think this person. I mean, this is BBC, UK, not. It's not talking about. Yeah, I don't know. I could have sworn. You know what? Okay, it is, and it apparently is British. Not. I've only ever heard like Australians use it. Wait. Oh, apparently it could be cup of, but yeah. A good strong cuppa means a cup of tea. Yeah, I don't know. It's just so British. And I mean that in the worst possible way, to be clear. Cup of Joe is fine though. Really, that one's okay. I mean, maybe because like cup of Joe is like inherently American, right? You're talking about a cup. It's Joe. Like who else calls coffee Joe but like Americans? Um, so it counteracts the Britishness of the word cuppa. But even I had trouble reading that out because I'm used to because I would say cup of Joe, you know. But I also don't say Joe for coffee. Shoulder hurting. But in the hunt for perfection in a teacup, a scientist has created a formula for the optimal temperature, infusion, and imbibation. First of all, you're British. Use the Oxford comma. What's wrong with you? What are you doing? All right, we're taking silly things seriously. Where's your comma? All right. But also scientifically optimal tea. I appreciate I appreciate the where we're coming from here. I think it's because it's pronounced more like cup of Joe. Maybe I don't know. Uh, I do like the it's in line with like we're pretending we're adding seriousness to a very silly subject. Scientific optimization, because obviously like what is the optimal cup of tea? Well, it's supposed to be what's tasty for a person. People have different tastes, so how can it be optimal? Obviously that's part of the joke, I think. I'm glad I've explained the joke and thereby ruined it. I hope everyone appreciates the destruction of comedy. I've done it. I've destroyed comedy. Oh, and when to put the milk in. Don't. When you put it in is when you're done with your tea, and then when you want a cup of milk and not tea. That's when you put the milk in. Is when there's not tea in it. And then and when there's not tea in it, and also when you're not going to put tea in it. There are 11 rules for the perfect tea making, rules which no one should dare depart, said George Orwell. The great critic of Hitler and Stalin was not above a bit of tea-time totalitarianism himself. Ah, I love that phrase. Tea-time totalitarianism. Excellent phrase. Well done, unknown author. It was not above a bit of tea-time totalitarianism himself, it seems. Orwell said that tea, one of the mainstays of civilization, is ruined by sweetening, and that anyone flouting his diktat on shunning the sugar bowl could not be called a true tea lover. It's true. It's regrettable. One of Orwell's many failings. Uh, he was not a perfect man. We should remember that no one is perfect, and we see here no the clearest possible evidence of such. And we see his 11 rules here. We've already gone over it, so I'm not going to read about it. Aside from his sweet tooth tea drinkers, the author also displayed a distaste for scientists. Did he? So to mark the 100th anniversary of Orwell's birth, the Royal Society of Chemistry has decided to look at his 11-point formula and rubbish a good many of his supposedly golden rules. Dr. Andrew Stapley, a chemical engineer at Brit Place University, has brought the weight of like you pronounce like four of these letters, right? In Britain, it's like Loughborough, probably Loughborough. Like, okay, whatever. Has brought the weight of his scientific knowledge and shameless personal preferences to bear on the question of the perfect cuppa, and found that Orwell was wrong on a number of points. Well, of course he was. Okay, never mind. It's just kerning. Orwell's 6 spoons of tea per pot, mightily extravagant when the author set down his rule during post-war rationing, is still far too strong today. Yeah, way too strong. I was like, maybe he's using exceptionally weak tea, and that's why he needs so much. But like, in my experience at least, past a certain point, you don't actually get any additional strongness or flavor. Like, if I doubled the amount of tea that I put in my cup, it would more or less taste the same, unless I like burnt it basically, like unless like it got bitter from having too much kind of thing. But yeah, that's way too much. I'll usually put like 2 teaspoons, if that, in a pot of tea. But I think he's also talking about a bigger pot than I was, because he was talking about a quart. I don't know if mine is a quart. It might be, but I'm not sure. The RSC endorses no more than a single spoon of leaves. Well, that seems like too little. Why? So these back and forths. As for adding milk to the tea after it is poured, the RSC issues a stern scientific warning against the practice. Yeah, don't pour it in at all. It seems that dribbling a stream of milk into hot water makes denaturization denaturation of milk proteins more likely. What the, and who would want that? What even is that? Why is that a bad thing? What even is that? Again, in all the times I've never poured milk into my tea, I've never had any denaturation of milk proteins. Seems like a perfect solution. Seems like I found the answer to all these problems. I've solved it. At high temperatures, milk proteins, which are normally all curled up fetus-like. Oh, that how the Brits spell fetus? No. Bad. We're getting this all over the place. Even Hitchens wanting to pronounce it herb. We get fetus spelled like this. This is... How do they get their own language so wrong? I ask again. Begin to unfold and link together in clumps. This is what happens in UHT, ultra heat treated, milk, and why it doesn't taste as good as fresh milk, says Dr. Stapley. Again, very easy solution. Just don't put milk in your tea. This will never happen. But also, why does pouring it in ahead of time? Wouldn't it be at a higher temperature when you pour the tea into the cup? Well, I guess it. Yeah, wouldn't it be the same? Either the same or hotter if you have the milk in the cup first? It seems so weird that we have all these like non-unique arguments. I don't know if that's come up before. Is that on our concepts document? I don't think we have. All right, we're gonna add one. It's been a while, and it's about tea. All right. So when an argument is non-unique, it's when it could apply to both sides equally as much. I still haven't done this homework. Maybe we'll have a homework day. But something non-unique would be like if both instances you'd have this issue. So like here, oh, when you pour the tea, when you pour the milk into the tea, it's too hot, and so the milk has this thing happen to it. But if you pour the tea into the tea's still too hot. Wouldn't you still have the same issue? It's not different from one side or the other. This happens not super rarely, but it does happen. Where like either option will yield the same result. So to just credit or discredit one position over the other for that reason is nonsense, right? It is better to have chilled milk massed at the bottom of the cup, awaiting the stream of hot tea. This allows the milk to cool the tea rather than the tea to ruinously raise the temperature of the milk. Both would happen. What? Am I just like way out of touch with science? ChemGal, you have chem in your name. All right, hit me up. Am I just like am I just thinking nonsense, or is this ridiculous as I'm seeing it, that somehow if the tea is added to the milk, it's that the milk cools the tea, but if you add the milk to the tea, it's not that, it's that the tea heats the milk. What? That's not how temperature change works. When things change temperature, when you have a hot thing and a cold thing, this heats, this cools, and then they become the same, and then they level out at a in between temperature. That's how temperature works. What? Someone help me up, maybe in the comments of when I upload the VOD or something. Someone hit me up. Am I just crazy, or is this nonsense? Also, I know. Also, even if it is nonsense, it's not. Obviously, this is a joke thing. They're scientifically making. Obviously, it's a joke, even if it's nonsense. But I'm wondering if this is like trying to make an actual argument, or if this is like we're saying something ridiculous jokingly as an argument, kind of like what Douglas Adams did, where he's like, "Hey, man, I know this is socially unacceptable, but lots of things are." Also, unlike in Orwell's rules, science seems to bear no grudge against those who would take sugar with their tea, provided it's white sugar. Oh, some suggestion of brown sugar as an alternative. Was it Orwell or was it Hitchens that was saying like maybe brown sugar? I forget. Someone was saying like brown sugar was an option. Interesting. That must be white sugar. Well, I still want to try the brown sugar thing. That's another one on the list. We'll we'll make I'll open a notepad of like tea ideas. Um, uh, we'll add we'll add follower the follower uh, threshold of salt or pepper to this list, but also and we can try the Earl Grey one just next week. I'm trying to like tone down how much black tea I have because it's a lot of caffeine. So that's why it's only like maybe twice a week I'll have it. And so next week maybe I'll make Earl Grey and we'll try the lemon. The brown sugar we'll have to find some moment. Indeed, the addition of sugar is praised since it acts to moderate the natural astringency of tea. Yeah, see, yeah, there you go. Scientifically better to have sugar, which translated into unscientific terms means it makes the tea, wait for it, less bitter. Well, while I agree with that, you have to remember Orwell was of the position that tea is meant to be bitter. Now he's wrong, but the bitterness was in. If you see bitterness as a positive, this is not a supported position. Now you're saying this is an argument, in fact, against sugar in the tea. This is hearsay to Aura. Oh, you're getting to that. Okay. Tea is meant to be bitter, just as beer is meant to be bitter, he said. What would he have made of the alcopop suggested by the RSC? He would recognize and appreciate some elements of Dr. Stapley's perfect cuppa. The RSC brew uses Indian Assam tea leaves, which falls within Orwell's tight stipulations. He said no other nation's tea made him feel wiser, braver, or more optimistic. I thought he said specifically that it does not make you feel wiser, braver, or more optimistic. Or maybe he was just saying, or oh, I guess maybe if I remember right, it might have been saying like Chinese tea doesn't do this, but I guess Indian tea does. I don't fucking know. There's no real scientific reason for Assam winning out over other leaf varieties. It just happens to be a strong tea to Dr. Stapley's own taste. While while some things are backed by science, others, like the choice of Assam, are based on my own preferences. I I love this as just like another subtle joke. Like you what tea you have, it's so to your own preferences. But it is objectively the case that you must have the tea in the cup for it. It's scientifically. I don't care what your preference is. You're wrong. Clearly we're seeing the contentiousness. Even Hitchens mentioned of whether the milk comes before or after. Um, Woefully few people saying it should come not at all. But here I am, standing against the British once more. The heart of America beating in my chest. And when we say no milk in the tea, I'm sure there are going to be plenty of people coming up with better methods to make tea, and it's good that we have that debate, says Dr. Stapley. Finally, I thought this was scientifically rigorous. So what happened to your certainty? Finally, the RSC recommends that the perfect cup of tea made by following its formula should be drunk while reading George Orwell's account of 1930s drudgery and vagrancy down and out in Paris and London. Uh, well, I don't know if that'd be pretty boring if I just did that on the street. Every time I have tea, I gotta read that, and I can't do anything else. I gotta read this specific thing. I don't know. Well, no disrespect to the late Mr. Orwell, but BBC News Online begs to differ. Having brewed the perfect cup of tea, we recommend that you sip it while stewing over our tea break quiz. All right, everyone ready for the pop quiz? If you want, I can even wait for your answers. All right, question 1: which beverage, on average, contains the highest dose of stimulant, caffeine? Anyone wanna pop in? A, cup of tea. B, cup of coffee. C, can of cola. What do we think? I'm thinking coffee. I mean, I don't really know. We can Google it, but that's not the point. This is a pop quiz, all right? This is not an open book test, all right? This is a pop quiz. We got to be ready. You think coffee too? All right, I'm hitting it up. Coffee. Let's go. Dr. Len Fisher of the University of Bristol won an or is it Ig Nobel? I don't know. Nobel Prize from Harvard's Annals of Improbable Research for his equation explaining what who the hell knows? Why tea dribbles down a pot spout rather than pouring cleanly into the cup? The number of household accidents caused by tea cozies. The best, how best to dunk biscuits in tea. First of all, they're cookies. Biscuits are a different thing. All right, this Britishness will not stand. Americans rise up. I think it's the first one. My guess is, I mean, if it's an equation, right? It's got to be like a physics thing for why tea dribbles down the pot spout, right? Right? Is that what we're thinking? What do you think, chat? Yes, no, maybe? All right. No one's saying anything. I'm gonna go with that one. I'm gonna go with my gut. If you think something else, all right. Well, you can say something. Question 3. Put these countries in order. The one with the highest tea consumption per head first. Per head. Okay, well, okay, because I was gonna say, well, India has like 2 billion people in it. They probably drink more tea than England with like its several million population or whatever. But per head, I'm gonna guess. Oh, well, my thought is just not on here. I was like, maybe India, then the UK, then Turkey, but no, that can't be right. Maybe it's not India. Maybe it's the UK, then India, then Turkey. What do you think, chat? I'm thinking B. What do you think? That was my thought too. All right, all right. We're simpatico here. Amazon Kane. Eye to eye. All right. American Thomas Sullivan is credited with what in 1904? A. Inventing the modern tea bag. B. Writing the song "Tea for Two" and "Two for Tea." Maybe this should. Maybe if I can. I guess I'll have copyright problems. Like maybe this should be my like opening song on Twitch or on Kick. But I'll probably have copyright issues, so I'm not gonna do that. Masterminding the Boston Tea Party, during which the Americans, enraged by a British tea tax, threw hundreds of pounds of tea into Boston Harbor, making, to date, the largest known pot of tea ever produced. But obviously no, right? 1904. I'm guessing it's the tea bag. Like, that seems pretty obvious, right? Which aristocrat began the custom of afternoon tea, according to legend? A. Charles II, Earl Grey. B. Anna the Seventh, Duchess of Bedford. C. John Montague, the Fourth Earl of Sandwich. I'm guessing it's Earl Grey, right? Like I don't know. Maybe that's a bait. Maybe it's a trap. But I'm thinking Earl Grey. That's why we got the T, right? Question 6, last question. Drugs are like getting up and having a cup of tea in the morning. Who said it? Author Will Self, who once snorted heroin on a prime ministerial jet. Noel Gallagher of Oasis. Thomas De Quincey, author of Confessions of an Opium Eater. I have no clue with this one. Chat, I'll take literally whatever you say. That's what I'm going with. I have no clue. Also, isn't snorting not the thing you do with heroin? I don't know. I'm not a drug appreciator. Uh, but as my understanding is that's not what you do with it. I guess you can. I've seen Pulp Fiction. It happened, but it didn't go well. My guess is it didn't go well because of the quantity. But no idea. But I hope all are correct. No, you gotta help me out. I have no clue. Just throw it out. Just throw an answer. Whatever the first answer is in chat, that's what we're going with. I don't care. I don't care if you think it's right. I don't care if you think it's wrong. We're just going. I'm not picking this one. All right, this is a pop quiz. You're getting quiz too. You're saying A. All right. I was thinking maybe B, but because it's the only one that doesn't have a reference to drugs. Anyone who has done drugs would probably know. It would probably be very clear that no, this is not the same thing. Though I guess it is actually true, just given given the fact that tea has caffeine, which is literally a drug. All right, how'd we do? No, this article's too old. We can't do it. I just thought it was the funniest answer. An error occurred while processing this directive. This article's probably too old. It probably doesn't work. Yeah, this is from 2003. Yeah, okay, that's fair. We'll never know. We'll never know, another grand tragedy of the human existence. Such is life. Despair and folly. Truly, truly the most disappointing conclusion. But I hope everyone has enjoyed this tea content. I do want to switch gears a little bit before we conclude here. One moment. I just want to update my stream info since we're changing tack a little bit. So you might have heard a little bit about this story, but I want to talk about it in case anyone hasn't. United States Congressperson Marjorie Taylor Greene may have sent Hunter Biden nudes to a bunch of minors. There are laws about not doing this. So the basics of the story, as we'll cover here, is that Marjorie Taylor Greene, being America's foremost nut job, is continuously incensed over the nonsense that is the conspiracy theories around Hunter Biden. In this case, it's not even the more important stuff like cocaine in the White House, which is more important than has pictures of himself banging prostitutes on his own laptop, because really, what's the issue? Right? Like what really is the problem? But of course, like they're drumming up this, they're trying everything possible to throw accusations towards Hunter Biden because it's political, whatever. But she's like the true reliever type. She probably believes in all this craziness and nonsense. As I understand it, on the floor of Congress, she even like showed some of these pictures, which was, in a word, inappropriate, but also sent them out to her mailing list. Well, let's let the article talk about it. I'm not going to get too far into it. I'm going to let the article go over this. Okay, we'll see if we can find more about it if this is insufficient. But in her desperation to prove wrongdoing by Hunter Biden, very appropriate, ideal framing. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene may have sent his nude photos to minors. The House Oversight Committee heard testimony on Wednesday from two IRS agents who say the Department of Justice dragged its feet on investigating the younger Biden for tax fraud. The hearing produced zero actual evidence. So instead, Greene tried to claim that Biden engaged in sex trafficking and listed payments to sex workers as a tax write-off. So this is, again, we talked about this yesterday with the Hunter Biden stuff, like the cocaine in the White House. I want to remind you, she doesn't give a shit. She does not care about sex trafficking or sex workers and all this stuff. How do I know this? Her president is like the Epstein guy. She loves Trump. She got elected basically being a QAnoner. She absolutely loves Trump, and that guy was like close personal friends with Jeffrey Epstein, was on the Lolita Express constantly. She doesn't give a shit about sex workers or sex trafficking or anything like that. She does not care if he was involved with sex trafficking. She cares that I don't know, even I assume Hunter Biden's a Democrat, but more accurately, that his relative is a political opponent and engaged in something that she can get mad about. Obviously, so I want to be clear. She thinks she cares about the sex trafficking. In her brain, she's like, yeah, that's important. But she only cares because it's a political opponent doing it. There's a tendency in the right, particularly the fascist types, which Marjorie Taylor Greene absolutely is, to have this like laws for me but not for thee. I hate putting it in that way. The way I'd prefer to put it is that right-wing thinking often has the in-group to whom the laws do not apply but do protect, and then the out-group to whom the laws do not protect but do bind. So this is easiest to see in something like a feudal society where like there are laws about like killing or whatever, or stealing, but like the aristocracy just do it, right? If they want to take shit from the peasants, they can. That's just allowed. They're not bound by that law, but they are protected by it in that, you know, if a peasant goes and steals from them or tries to, they have the right to seek punishment. This is actually what's going on. This is why she's pretending to care. But I do want to highlight this: they do not care. They do not absolutely care. In fact, it's been well documented that QAnon has been highly damaging to actual efforts to prevent sex trafficking by inundating systems trying to actually fight it with false and nonsense claims that are aimed at democratic politicians that they hate solely because they hate them and because in MTG's head, I hate them, therefore they must be pedophiles or whatever. Not they did anything to actually warrant that accusation. And it's massively getting in the way of actual efforts to prevent sex trafficking. To support her argument, she held up I'm a little worried about this link. I'm gonna make sure it's not on stream before I look at it. Yeah, let me take a look. Okay, it's an article just talking about what she did. Okay, there aren't any pictures anyway. She held up a poster-sized prints of Biden's nude photos, which were taken off his laptop. Note that means she made or had made posters. Like, tell me you're obsessed with Hunter Biden's dick without telling me you're obsessed with his dick. Like, who? She's making poster-sized prints of his nudes. Totally normal behavior, right? Which were taken from his laptop. The whole Hunter Biden laptop story, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this. Highly suspect, right? Allegedly, Hunter Biden went to a laptop repair shop in some podunk town that no one's heard of, left it there, has a bunch of like weird incriminating shit on it, and then never comes back to retrieve it. And the guy is like, that guy looks familiar, even though nobody knew who Hunter Biden was. Like, nobody cared about who Hunter Biden was or what he looked like before this story. And it has all this stuff on it. I call bullshit. It's almost certainly like they got it through illicit means, and they made up the story to like make it to cover up how his laptop was acquired. Also, if you remember how certain they were that it had all this incriminating stuff, they were certain there was child pornography and like evidence of bribery and whatever else. And then none of it's now they only talk about like the nudes or whatever. Like, okay, neat. The guy has, as I've heard other streamers put it, okay, so you've proven that he has a big dick and has sex with a lot of beautiful women. You got me. He is super cool. But her emails, but his nudes, yeah, for real. Yeah, yeah. Not only were her actions wildly inappropriate, Oversight Chair James Comer did not reprimand her, of course, though, but she may have violated DC revenge porn law. Yeah, so there are laws about revenge porn. Oh, good, this is just the law. It shall be unlawful in the District of Columbia for a person to knowingly disclose one or more sexual images of another identified or identifiable person when 1. The person depicted did not consent to the disclosure of the sexual image. Already, boom. We've already got it. We don't have to read further, but let's keep going. There was an agreement or understanding between the person depicted and the person disclosing that the sexual image would not be disclosed. We don't have that. The person disclosed the sexual image with the intent to harm the person depicted or to receive financial gain. We have that too. B. A person who violates this section shall be guilty of a misdemeanor and, upon conviction, shall be fined not more than the amount set forth in this other thing, in prison for not more than 180 days, or both. So it's a misdemeanor, but it does violate revenge porn laws. It's pretty clear. Here's just like the amount it can be. Oh, what the hell? Okay, never mind. Yeah, it seems pretty clear that it violates this law, right? I guess one question I had, I didn't double check, is to knowingly disclose. It's just disclose, not distribute necessarily. So disclosing it to literally the floor of Congress has to count, right? But it gets worse than that, as we will see, as I've already hinted at, but we will discuss. And now Green may have emailed the nudes to minors. The Georgia representative emailed her constituents Wednesday evening, claiming she had confirmed Biden was guilty of sex trafficking and tax fraud. She had not. Note, she had not. It's a pretty safe bet that if Marjorie Taylor Greene makes any statement of fact, it's almost certainly false. If you start with that assumption, you are going to be right far more often than you're wrong. The email included a video that showed his nudes. Literally just sending nudes about. Marjorie Taylor Greene, so we have a tweet here. Marjorie Taylor Greene just sent this email to her constituents. Yes, this is using official taxpayer-funded resources. This is a little... how much does an email cost? Like, right? Like, yeah, she said, sure, but like, okay, I clicked the link, so you don't have to. It's exactly what you think. Marjorie Taylor Greene, representing 14th District of Georgia. God damn it. I didn't want to open it, but I wanted to unselect the text. And yeah, all right. Breaking: Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene confirms Hunter Biden paid prostitutes through law firm, committed tax fraud by deducting payments to prostitutes. Apparently, this is not true, according to the article, and as I say, I will assume that anything she says is not true. It's probably not. Washington, D.C. Today, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene questioned IRS whistleblowers on the alleged crimes of the Biden family. Notice it says the Biden family. No, about Hunter Biden specifically. It's not like... It's one of those, like... It might be technically correct, but, you know, if your family member commits a crime disconnected with anything you've done, and you're not involved in that crime, is that, like, the crimes of your family? Like, kind of, like... you're not really related to that. You're related to the person, but not necessarily their actions. Congresswoman Greene's, like, if, for example, if Marjorie Taylor Greene had a brother, I don't know if she does, but if she does, and, like, he commits a crime, is that investigating the crimes of the Greene family? No, it's investigating the crimes of her brother. Congresswoman Greene's questioning for a lot of people, their family reputation is an extension of their reputation. No, so no, that's not what's happening, because they don't give a shit, right? The Trump family does all sorts of crimes. The reason the association is there just because they're trying to make it relevant to Joe Biden. It's not. This is one of the things I point out when I pointed out yesterday, was like, he's not in government, he's not the president. If the president's kid commits a crime, let's say he's guilty of all this stuff, it has nothing to do with the president. Right? It's just like if Marjorie Taylor Greene's brother committed a crime. Does that make her responsible? No. But they're putting it in this way because they want to smear and imply a connection to Joe Biden. They want to pretend like it's the Biden crime family, remember? But for narcissists, they care. I mean, sure, but like that's this is a little more like it's the political thing, right? Like we actually should be talking about the Trump crime family. I actually don't, like, because we know that don't we know that Don Jr. and Eric were in fact collaborating with Russian agents during the 2016 election? Wasn't that like the result of the Russia investigation? But we don't. We talk about the quote unquote Biden crime family because the only thing they can find, like, notice how much they have to reach and how hard they have to look for a scandal to attach to Joe Biden. But the only thing they can find is on Hunter, so they have to conflate in order to make it stick. And I mean, it is working with people, but I would argue that those people were probably not ever going to vote for Joe Biden anyway. Probably too lost in the sauce kind of thing. Congresswoman Greene's questioning confirmed Hunter Biden paid prostitutes through his law firm. No, it didn't. And trafficked his victims across state lines in violation of the Mann Act. No, it didn't. The IRS whistleblowers also confirmed they didn't. Hunter Biden committed tax fraud. They didn't prove that by deducting payments to prostitutes. And then here's his nudes. Like, here's his sex tape. There is no screening for age when signing up for Greene's email newsletter, so any minors who subscribe, such as for social studies project or simply to stay up to date, have now received news from their congresswoman. And Republicans are the ones who claim Democrats are groomers. If that is the case, then Greene would not only have violated her state's revenge porn law. Ooh, so now it's not just DC, but now we got her states as well? Wait, is this the thing I just opened? Oh, I guess Twitter is the source. So here's the code. As used in this code, the section. So we get to nudity means the depiction of covered male genitals in a disturbingly turgid state. Sexually explicit conduct shall have the same meaning as set forth. Okay, sure. A person violates this code section if he or she knowing the content of a transmission or post, knowingly and without the consent of the depicted person, electronically transmits or posts in one or more transmissions or posts a photograph or video which depicts nudity or sexually explicit conduct of an adult, including a falsely created video, graphic, or still image, when the transmission or post is harassment or causes financial loss to the depicted person and serves no legitimate purpose to the depicted person. This last section gets her out of it. Or causes the electronic transmission or posting in one or more transmissions or posts of a photograph or video which depicts nudity or sexual explicit content of an adult, including a falsely created video, graphic, or still image, when the transmission or post is harassment or causes financial loss to the depicted person and serves no legitimate. What is the difference between these two? Oh, is actually does it or she might be able to wiggle out of this because she would argue it's a legitimate purpose. Oh, no, to the depicted person. Oh, so no, it doesn't serve a legitimate person to the depicted person. It is definitely harassment and, well, maybe not for financial loss. This one's a little wiggle. Like I can imagine a lawyer wiggling out of this, but it does seem to be slightly in violation. Definitely in violation of the DC law to a layperson, right? Obviously, I'm not a lawyer. Yeah, family values, exactly, Amazon Kane. But she could have also broken federal laws banning the distribution of obscene materials to minors. Obscenity laws, well, we talked about this. These are often like not enforceable, and shouldn't be enforced. But we'll see what is. Federal law strictly prohibits the distribution of obscene matter to minors. Any transfer or attempt to transfer such material to a minor under the age of 16, including over the internet, is punishable under a federal law. Maybe this one's a little like I don't know how much like obscenity laws are still enforced or ought to be. I mean, maybe just that's where things are. Sadly, that we have to point to these things that are a little bit less concrete than the DC law. It is a kind of an indication that revenge porn laws are not where they need to be in this country. It's kind of an issue. It's been noted by people who are actually activists in this regard, not just idiots like me. And this should be like unambiguously illegal. That it's maybe like something she could wiggle out of is another thing. Also, like, what are the odds? Like, for real, let's be real, that Georgia is actually going to charge her under any of this, right? Like, her district literally elected her. Do you think that, like, I don't know, maybe, like, but I'm not holding my breath. House Republicans, led by Comer, Comer is a Republican, so I'm surprised he. That's what I expected when it said he didn't admonish her. Have for months accused the Bidens of corruption and other forms of wrongdoing, although they have yet to produce any actual evidence. By the way, they will claim that this is just a thing that happened. When you take them to task on this, they'll be like, well, they'll change the subject and say, well, Democrats for use with the Russia hoax or whatever else. Except evidence was found for that, right? Like that did seem to be actually real. Trump himself might not have known about it, but as a campaign definitely did, as opposed to the actual no evidence that's been found for the Bidens. Like, and the second impeachment of Trump, it's like he's on record that he wasn't impeached was just because because it's a political process and not a legal one. But like definitely did the thing he was initially accused of. The actual articles of impeachment had nothing to do with the bribery because it's Congress. They want to be able to solicit bribes. They're not going to enforce laws prohibiting that. They're not going to try to punish the president for doing that. They're not going to impeach because then they can be impeached for when they do it. So obviously, but he unambiguously solicited a bribe from Zelensky. The hearing on Wednesday was meant to focus on Hunter Biden's plea deal over his taxes, which will allow him to avoid jail time. Oh, so there's punishment happening here. Yeah, this is another thing that we were talking about of like, a lot of the story is like, but he's getting away with shit. No, he got okay. The plea deal, maybe maybe it's nicer than it should have been, and maybe he wouldn't have gotten access to that if he were a less rich person or whatever else. But it's not like there's a complete lack of consequence that's going on here. So again, when it came to the cocaine story, why should I give a shit? Why should I care? He's being charged. He's getting like there's a plea deal, sure, but like he's pleading guilty to these crimes, so he'll be punished to some extent. Maybe it's not as much as you'd like, or maybe other people are punished too much, but that's the actual problem, not that he's getting away with anything. Again, why should I care? Right back to what we were talking about yesterday. IRS agents Gary Shapley and Joe Ziegler testified before the Oversight Committee about Hunter Biden's alleged wrongdoing. Jamie Raskin, the Oversight ranking member, had warned earlier Wednesday, however, that Shapley and Ziegler have already undermined this Republican narrative in their previous depositions. What is with these articles ending in this weird-ass place? It's such a weird place to end it. especially when the subject, like the actual article, is supposed to be about what's about the this paragraph two before, right? Like, why do they end here? But yeah, so Marjorie Taylor Greene sent nudes to her constituents, which is bad enough. That's already like the revenge porn thing. Also, it was there are possibly minors who subscribe. It's impossible to know just yet, but it's not impossible. I don't know how likely it is. I guess we'll find out. But she's literally distributing pornographic images uh, without the consent of those involved to her constituents, just openly breaking the law, kind of in the same way that I guess not the same way, but like they do this all the time, like openly break the law because they have power and they feel they should be allowed to do it. It's for her, it's justified because it's her political opponent supposedly doing a bad thing, which she didn't prove he did. And even if she had, this isn't the way to raise support about it. Or fucking DeSantis human trafficking people to other states in his uh in his like stunts about immigration or whatever. It's just another instance of it. And yeah, it's an important story. So this is why I wanted to cover it. There are a couple of other articles I have here that I had planned for before we did the tea content. But we had fun with tea content instead. I think we got our I think we made a good time of it. We'll get to those others. Maybe we'll start on this Monday or something like that. I do appreciate everyone watching. I hope you had fun with this one. I liked, for the most part, that it was a lot lighter. It was a lot more fun, not getting into the heavy stuff until the end. I would have preferred not to juxtapose the two, but this was new. I wanted to talk about it, and I'm not going to be back. I won't be streaming again for 4 days, so until Monday. So I don't want to just leave that rift there. It was already like I'm already debating. Actually, let me know both in the chat and the comments. There was a interview Andrew Tate had with Tucker Carlson. I was debating whether I should go on about that because that was also like it's also kind of old now, but we were in the middle of our genderqueer arc, so we didn't really have time for it. So let me know if you'd be interested in me going over it. It would probably take a couple of days, which is another reason why I didn't go over it today. Is it's like a 2 hour interview, and as we've seen, it takes a while to get through stuff. I have been getting better about that. We got through a lot more content with those interviews with Maya Kobe than we would normally get through just because I was commenting less. So maybe interviews we can get through a little bit faster. So let me know, like I say, in chat in the comments, if you want me to go over that interview with Andrew Tate and Tucker Carlson. I've seen parts of it, so I already know it's fun. Uh, just let me know. But thanks so much for watching, everybody. We have ideas for additional tea ways of mixing up tea. Oh, I forgot I didn't put in um, earthen teapot. Warm teapot before pouring. We'll try that out. I guess it's warm enough now. I might not have to do anything to warm the teapot. No, I probably should. It's still like room temperature, not that much hotter. And yeah, we have our first follower goal. We haven't set any of those, but 50 followers, and I will ruin a perfectly good cup of tea and subject myself to the torment of of salt or pepper in my tea. Maybe I'll repurpose that content warning little thing, and we'll put our follower count and how we were doing on the goal. I think someone unfollowed me. I was actually very sad to learn that. I think it might have been an accident. I think I know who it was actually. Um, but I see 6 viewers in my chat and 4 followers. I feel like some of you, maybe you can just hit that little heart button. I would much appreciate it, and it helps the channel, helps the stream, and brings us closer to me subjecting myself to just truly awful tea. How bad is that going to be? Like, that's the other question. Like, how much do we put in? How bad we can work with that. The quicker it happens, the worse I'll make it. How about that? I'll punish myself in exchange for your support. That said, I do appreciate any support I get, no matter what I'm doing to myself in exchange for it. But I hope you had a good time. We'll be back Monday. We'll talk about some stuff. We'll do some more serious things than the tea content we did today, though I did quite enjoy it. So thanks so much for watching, everybody, and I'll catch you next time. I'll see you later. Bye.